So today what we're going to do is we're going to draw some marbles. So to draw these marbles, I'm going to start by creating a background. So for my background, I'm going to go ahead and grab my rectangle tool, and I'm going to just throw some colors in there. You can choose whatever colors you want, arrange it however you want. That will be completely up to you. I'll set this at a 90-degree angle. And then I'm going to draw another rectangle that's going to become the surface of a table that I'm then going to put my marbles on top of. So I'll just change these colors. So if you double click on these little circles, you can change the colors to whatever you want them to be. Okay, so now that I've got this background area set up, I'm going to go ahead and open up my layers, and I'm going to lock this layer. After I lock this layer, I'm going to create a new layer, and on this new layer, this is where I'm going to draw my marbles. So to start that off, I'm going to draw what will become the inside of the marble. So I'm going to draw skinny little ellipse, and I'll make the color, let's make it a shade of blue. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take off the stroke there. So I don't want to see the stroke, because stroke doesn't really help my picture. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and warp this shape. So to warp this shape, I'm going to have it selected. I'm going to go under Effect. I'm going to go to Warp, and I'm going to use the flag effect. Okay, so on the flag, since I drew this horizontally, I'm going to have my horizontal selected. I'm going to set this to about 70% on my bend. I'll keep my horizontal and my vertical set to 0, and I'll go ahead and click OK. And since I warped the shape, I now need to expand the appearance, because I'm going to do some other things with this now that I've made a copy of it. So to expand the appearance, you go under Object, and you select Expand Appearance. That way it will recognize the new shape that you made. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of this shape, and I'm going to copy it by hitting Control-C, and I want to paste it right on top of the shape that's already there. So I'm going to hit Control-F afterwards. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my Direct Selection tool. With my Direct Selection tool, I'm going to select the anchor points on the top and on the bottom, but not on the side. So to select those, just hold Shift after you click the first anchor point, and while you're holding Shift, you can select multiple anchor points, but I don't want to select these two on the end, so I'm going to go ahead and leave those open. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale the size down. So if you right click, go down till you find Transform, and then go to Scale, I'm going to scale this to 75%, so go ahead and click OK. And now that I've scaled down the size, I'm going to change the color of that piece that I just changed to a lighter shade of blue. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and select these two pieces, and I'm going to group them together. And I'm going to make a copy of them. So hit Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste. I'm going to spin this around, and I'm going to actually change the color of these two. So if I take my Direct Selection tool, since I grouped it together, I just click on one color, I can throw in the color that I want, and I'll maybe do a couple shades of orange, but you can make it whatever color you want. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and select those two pieces with my selection tool, and I'm going to group them together. Now what I want to do is I want to create some highlighted effects with this. So to do that, I'll select my shape, and I'm going to go under Effect, and I'm going to go to Stylize, and I'm going to select Inner Glow. Alright, so with Inner Glow, I'm going to maybe switch that, we'll have that set to Edge. And okay, so I'm going to set this to my blur to 0.09, and I'm going to set my opacity to about 75%, and I'm going to have that coming out from the edge. So go ahead and click OK. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the marble. So to draw my marble, I'm going to go ahead and grab my ellipse tool, And as I draw the marble, I'm going to hold shift as to create a perfect circle with that marble. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and grab my gradient tool, and I'm going to switch my colors and my gradients to a light blue and a really light blue. So maybe I'll grab the white here and I'll go to this color spectrum and I'll add a little bit of blue to the white, but not too much. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this from linear to radial. I'm going to swap that around so that I've got my lighter shade in the middle. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my other gradient tool over here, and I'm going to come to the top of this circle, and I'm going to click and drag down to create a little bit of a different place for my highlight here. Alright, so now what I'm going to do, now that I've changed where my highlight is I'm going to grab my transparency tool. So if any of these tools you can't find, just look under window and you should be able to find them. So with my transparency tool, I'm going to switch this from normal to color burn. Okay, so with color burn, it'll give it kind of a transparent look, but not a complete transparent look. And now what I'm going to go ahead and do is we're going to create a little cast shadow underneath this. So I'll grab my ellipse tool and I'm going to make a little oval shape that I'm going to turn into a cast shadow. And I'm going to make a few adjustments with my gradient. So maybe make this a little bit of a darker shade of blue here. Okay, so with my gradient tool over here, I'll just click over here on the left side and drag it over to the right. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my transparency tool. I'm going to switch this from normal to multiply, and then I'm going to arrange this and send it to the back. So if you go under object arrange, you can send that to the back, and that will sit behind there. So create a little bit of a cast shadow here underneath our marble. Since the marble see-through, you can see the cast shadow underneath there. Now the last thing I'm going to do with this is I'm going to create a little highlight. So to create my highlight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a little oval here, and I'm going to change the color to white, and I'm going to create a little bit of a warp on that shape. So I'll go under effect, warp and arc, and since I drew it vertically, I'm going to bend it vertically to about 70%. I'll keep everything else set to 0. I'll click OK. Since I warped the shape, I need to now expand the appearance. And now I'm going to rotate this a little bit to create this highlight over here on the top left edge. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to blur this shape out a little bit. So to blur it out, I'm going to go under Effect. I'm going to go down to Blur, and I'm going to use my Gaussian blur. And I'm going to blur this out about 25%. Or 25 pixels. We'll go ahead and click OK. Alright, so then we'll get this little highlight through there. So I'm going to add, copy this, and I'm going to put a little bit of a highlight inside of this cast shadow here. Now, if I wanted to, I could make a couple copies of this. Maybe I can stick this one up a little bit higher so it looks like it's sitting back a little bit farther on the screen.